Hi, I'm Bruce Clarke. I'm Paul Whitfield Horn Professor of Literature and Science here in the Department of English. I got here in 1982, which is 35 years ago, and here I still am. I began my career uh, as a specialist in British Romanticism. That's what I was hired to do, and I taught that pretty much until I got tenure and promotion. And then I gradually changed my emphasis and I developed a new specialization. That was this literature and science area that I gradually transferred my scholarship to. And I think that's one of the reasons why I found a kind of fertile area that was relatively uncultivated where I could make my mark uh, in perhaps more easily than in a traditional field. But and so in 2011, I was awarded a Horn Professorship on the basis of my literature and science scholarship and the the way that I was able to uh, make my work known internationally as a specialist in this area, which is one thing that the university looks for. So I just stopped being chair after 5 years, and now I'm ready to go back into the classroom and just become a normal professor once again, and continue for some years yet before I hang up my hat. Well, I came to Texas Tech because they offered me a job uh, back in the early 80s, and I didn't really know what to expect. It's a part of the country that I hadn't been to. But my wife and I moved here, and she found a job, and I succeeded in starting my career here. And so we bought a house, and and not before too long, she found a job. And meanwhile, my academic career was uh, moving along nicely. I got tenure here at Tech, and especially because I kind of transitioned to an unusual specialization, I think that's one of the reasons why I've stayed at Tech, because they gave me the room I needed to to do this kind of professional exploration of new academic areas. And so I've always felt that at another school they might not have been that happy about me moving away from what they hired me in to do. But I didn't have a problem with that at Texas Tech. So I've been here ever since, and until uh, in 2011 I was conferred a Horn Professorship, which is a wonderful honor. And in 2012 they asked me to be chair of the department. I don't know. It wasn't really a package deal, but how could I say no after after receiving that honor? So I've just passed the job of chair on to Dr. Brian Still, and I'm on development leave at the moment working on my next book. Well, one of the great things about being an undergraduate at Texas Tech in particular is the amazing breadth of options. And the English department is a perfect example. It's a large department, one of the largest on campus. And there are a number of different programs, not just in traditional literature, but in creative writing, in technical communication and rhetoric, and as well as specialized programs such as LSJE, which began a couple of years ago. That's Literature, Social Justice, and the Environment. And also CLGT, which is Comparative Literature, Globalization, and Translation. So, and we've just been recently developing study abroad programs. And this is, of course, part of the university's initiative to create greater opportunities for international travel and study, and the globalization of one's education. So I think Tech has really stepped up to the plate to modernize its curriculum, and our department is very actively involved in that initiative. So the Department of English, as I described it, is a broad department, and the discipline itself has been modernizing in really interesting ways, so that as I've explored how to teach literature and science, I've focused on all the ways in which writing, not necessarily literary writing, that is novels or poems, but just what we call discourse, is a proper object of study. It doesn't even have to be in English, of course, but English just means, by and large, this is the language in which we work. But it also just means language. So we also have a linguistics program at the undergraduate and graduate levels. So the study of language, the study of discourse, the study of texts, and what makes a text can be pursued, say, for instance, in a scientific article, or a book that's not a work of fiction, but for instance, in my literature and science classes, I try to provide the students a grounding in the science that the literature, like the science fiction, or even other sorts of what we'd call mainstream literature that doesn't that nonetheless has scientific elements involved in the story world that it opens up. But still, I'll use one or two works of popular science, so that the students have, so that I don't have any. I can't assume that they've got that kind of specialized knowledge, but at least are willing to learn something about it. So, and as we read the popular science to learn some of the basic scientific ideas, we can also study the rhetorical structures of the book, the way the book operates to provide that information in an engaging way and in an effective way, and that's English study as well, of a certain kind. I've had those moments. I had actually, just earlier this year, I might have mentioned previously that I'm on development leave this semester, fall of 2017. So this is something the university provides every 5 years. Professors have the opportunity to apply for a development leave, otherwise known as a sabbatical. So I was coming in to the department for I think a beginning of semester kind of social event in the atrium. Our new chair had this great idea to turn the atrium, which is this high ceilinged area right by the main office, into a kind of lounge. It had just been sort of sitting there, not being utilized. So if I recall, it was the kind of opening up of the new atrium with tables and chairs and sofas and just a place for people. And so there was some snacks and a little reception. And so a couple of students happened to come by this, and I wouldn't necessarily have bumped into them, but it was not one but two students who had been in my introduction to literary studies class the year before. And after that, they had asked me for recommendations, and I had written them, but then I hadn't heard how things had gone for them for the scholarships that they were applying for. And they both And both of them kind of separately said, "Oh, Dr. Clarke, I got that scholarship." And so that's what you want to hear. That yeah, that uh, you know that things fall into place that way. They take the course, they succeed, you get to know them, you feel good about helping them, uh, and just the way things work is often that just means you're writing a letter for them, and then the letter goes in and it does the trick. Of course, along with other letters that they had to get, but then it's nice when you actually do get the feedback and find out that they've been successful. I've always had a kind of philosophical interest in literature. You could say that is I it's way more than entertainment, and it's way more than just. Although, in other words, there's works of literature that are artful. I mean, a work of fiction or a poem. This is a piece of art, and so it has beauty or it has aesthetic qualities, and you want to show your students how to enjoy the beauty, the the quality of the artistry. But then at the same time, there are ideas embedded in works of literary art or in works of nonfiction, in the essay. I love to read essays. These aren't works of art exactly; they're works of scholarship. But but there's a whole different kind of enjoyment and engagement. And I hope I can show my students how to engage even the artistic works and the kind of intellectual or scholarly works in a way that opens their minds uh, to really take their thinking skills to another level. And if I'm successful in that, then that you can cash that in anywhere, in any profession, in any pursuit, where you've got to grapple with the meanings of things or the way things hang together. You have to come to a judgment about what's going on here and what's the proper response, whatever it might be. And so I feel that that's what I'm going for in the fullness of time, as far as cultivating a student's total intellect through the study of English of various sorts. What I would tell an alumni, an alumnus, or an alumna, or the alumni as a body, is that your engagement with the department that you studied in is invaluable in carrying our efforts forward in this 21st century, in this world that's constantly uh, uh, changing and encountering all the new technologies and all the new issues that we grapple with as a society. People might have heard uh, that the humanities are under attack or are being uh, downplayed relative to science and technology, and there are probably reasons why people say those things, uh, but if alumni will show their support for what the English department does, that goes a long way. If they'll express themselves in any fashion, that is, to their community, to their legislators. I mean, that's especially important in Texas because Tech's a public university, and so alumni should understand that they can help Tech out not necessarily by coming back to tech or contributing, although we certainly like when that happens, but also by standing up for the Department of English and the university as a whole, to their congresspersons, to their especially the state legislators, because those are the ones who make the budgetary decisions that we depend on. So I would just say the thing to understand is that it's a very complex interlocking of institutions that within which the Department of English is a specific unit trying its best to improve and but at least to maintain its resources and its ability to deliver for its students. And so there are many ways to help out.